The worst decision I ever made in my marriage started with 3 calm words. Yeah, that's fine. My name's Ryan Mitchell. I'm 41, American, and I make my living managing construction projects and risk other people's deadlines, other people's budgets, other people's screw-ups. I'm good at spotting structural problems before they turn into headlines. The funny thing is, I caught every crack on job sites and ignored the ones in my own kitchen. That night, the house smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Chloe was at the table, legs swinging, pencil tapping, third-grade math spread out in front of her. Lauren was at the stove, but her mind wasn't on the pan. I could tell from the way she kept turning the spoon in circles instead of actually stirring. "Hey," she said, not looking at me at first. "So, Tyler's in a tough spot." Chest tight. There it was. Tyler Brooks. The name I hadn't heard out loud in a while but never really forgot. I kept my face neutral, walked over, kissed Chloe on the head, and asked her how the homework was going. "What kind of tough spot?" I asked. "Between jobs, between apartments, between everything," she said, finally looking at me. "He just needs a place to land for a few days. It'd be really kind if we could help him out." A few days. People love that phrase. In construction, a few days means, we don't know how long this is going to drag, but don't yell yet. Same thing here. I heard myself ask the logical questions. He has a family around? Friends? Why us? She shrugged too fast. "We have the space. It's not about history, Ryan. It's about not letting someone drown when you can throw them a life jacket." Behind her, Chloe's listening without listening, catching pieces. The last thing I want is her watching her parents scream about some guy she's never met. I can see the future. Voices raised, doors slammed. Lauren crying into the phone about how I'm controlling and jealous. That's the moment right there. One fork in the road. Say no, and I get the big fight. Say yes, and I get something quieter, slower, and maybe more useful. I feel the anger rise, then flatten into something colder. I've seen buildings condemned months before the sign goes up. This feels like that. Yeah. I say finally, staring at the stove, not her. That's fine. 3 words. No plate thrown, no big scene. Just a permission slip with my signature on it. She exhales, relieved. Starts talking about logistics, guest room, dates, how mature we're being. Chloe asks if we're getting a new roommate. I tell her it's temporary, like the weather. What I don't say is what I decide at that moment. I'm done competing. I'm done explaining why this feels wrong. From that night on, I'm not just a husband in this story. I'm the historian. If Lauren's gonna burn down what we built, I'm gonna make sure the paperwork is in order when the flames are done. Tyler showed up on a Thursday just before sunset. The sky, that dull, flat gray that makes everything look honest whether it is or not. I opened the front door and there he was. 1 beat-up suitcase, 1 backpack, and that grateful smile people use when they want you to feel like a good guy. Taller than I remembered, a little softer around the middle, hair doing that I don't care mess that actually takes work. "Ryan," he said, sticking his hand out like we were old teammates. "Man, thanks for this. Seriously." I shook his hand, stepped aside, and let him walk into my house. "Guest rooms down the hall," I said. "Bathrooms across from it. Towels are in the closet." He rolled the suitcase over my hardwood, and whistled low. "The place looks great. You've done well, man." "Yeah, I had." He disappeared into the guest room I'd built myself one summer. Drywall dust in my hair. Chloe toddling in with her tiny plastic hammer to help. Now it was just for a few days storage for my wife's history. At dinner, he sat at the end of the table like he'd been there before. Lauren served him first without thinking about it. I noticed. I don't think she did. "So what happened with the job?" I asked, cutting my steak, keeping my tone light. He shifted in his chair. "Company downsized. The whole thing caught me off guard. The market's rough right now, you know? Got some stuff in the pipeline, though." "Yeah," I swallowed. "What kind of stuff?" He blinked, glanced at Lauren. "Couple interviews. Talking to a friend about a project. Nothing locked yet." Lauren jumped in like she'd been waiting. "He's got options, Ree. It's just timing." He needed a reset. I nodded like that made sense. Are you applying online or mostly talking to people you know? Polite, practical. Every question something any reasonable host might ask. The thing is, reasonable questions make liars uncomfortable. His laptop was open on the guest bed later when I walked past. Some sports scores, a half-written email, nothing that looked like job applications. Suitcase half unpacked. Clothes spilling out like he expected to stay long enough to need everything. That weekend, I went to the hardware store. Picked up a lock for my office cabinet. A couple of organizing trays. Nothing dramatic. Back home, while Lauren and Tyler watched some show in the living room and Chloe drew at the coffee table, I installed the lock. Moved certain folders, bank records, property files, insurance, out of the file drawer labeled Home, and into the one I mentally renamed Exit. I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet, but I've walked enough half-finished buildings to know when a foundation's already shot. I shut the new lock, tested it twice, and told myself the truth. I wasn't hosting anymore. I was managing a long-term problem, and the guest room had just become part of the case file. The house settled into a new routine that felt wrong in all the quiet ways. Tyler slept late. I'd be lacing my boots for work while he shuffled into the kitchen in yesterday's t-shirt, rubbing his eyes like a teenager on summer break. "Morning, man," he'd mumble, reaching for Lauren's coffee before pouring his own. "Morning," I'd say back, checking the time, checking my patience. He'd spend half the day in the guest room job hunting. I'd see the light under the door, hear the clicking of keys, the occasional laugh at something on his screen. When I passed by, the laptop never showed applications or resumes, just videos, sports, a tab or two of opportunities that never seemed to turn into anything. Lauren floated between defending him and pretending nothing had changed. "He's really trying, Ryan," she'd say, packing Chloe's lunch. "It's just a tough market." I'd nod, zip up Chloe's backpack, kiss her on the head. "Bus is here, kiddo." My days stayed the same. Job site, meetings, schedules, problems I could actually fix. I'd come home, eat dinner, help Chloe with homework, then disappear into my office like I had overtime to finish. That office used to be just a place for blueprints and invoices. It turned into something else. Sanctuary and war room. The first thing I did was clean the desk. Stacks of mail, old bid folders, manuals, gone, filed or trashed. I brought in a small lockbox and put it behind a row of binders. Inside went IDs, passports, spare keys. Anything someone could walk off with in 5 seconds. Then I started on the real work. I transferred files into the locked cabinet, house deed, mortgage, car titles, retirement printouts, Chloe's birth certificate, insurance policies. I made copies, labeled them in my handwriting, slipped them into plain manila folders. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would look like more than a guy finally getting organized. I set up a separate email account on my laptop, the one Andrew Collins, our attorney friend from a neighbor's barbecue, had once told me was smart to have, just in case. I used it to contact him. Short, clean message. Might need to talk about family law. Nothing urgent yet. I want to understand my options. The reply came the same day. Meeting set for the following week. No fanfare. On my desk, I put a regular spiral notebook. Black cover. The kind anybody might use for work notes. Inside, I wrote dates, little observations in bullet points. Thursday, Tyler's car here all day, no interviews mentioned. Sunday, Lauren laughed hardest at his story, not mine. Monday, Chloe asked if Tyler is living here now. Facts, not feelings. Feelings don't show up well in court. Outside my office door, the noise level went up while mine went down. I'd hear Lauren on the phone with her best friend Jenna. "He's just being dramatic. He's so quiet, he's passive-aggressive." Her mom, Patricia, came over with casseroles and opinions. "You're humiliating my daughter in her own home," she said loud enough for me to hear. "A real man wouldn't need to lock himself in an office just because an old friend needs help." I sat at my desk, hands steady, sliding statements into a labeled folder. Checking, savings, retirement, college fund. My name, Lauren's name, joint accounts, balances, transfers. The raised voices in the kitchen washed through the door. A year ago, I'd have been out there defending myself, arguing point by point, trying to win. Now I let Patricia talk, let Lauren vent, let the casserole cool on the counter. I'd learned something from years in construction. Not every crack gets fixed. Sometimes you walk into a building, you see the damage, and you know they're never going to pay to do it right. So you stop dreaming up repairs. You start taking pictures, logging conditions, writing down every detail for the insurance report. That's what my life had become on the other side of that office door. Not a truce. Not forgiveness. Documentation. The funny thing about trying to keep your marriage problems quiet is that your house has windows and other people have eyes. Started small. A guy from down the block, Mark, stopped next to me at the mailbox one morning. "That the same car from last month?" he asked, nodding toward the driveway where Tyler's sedan was parked again, though he was just passing through. "Yeah," I said, flipping through envelopes, taking him longer to get on his feet than he thought. Mark hesitated, then lowered his voice. "You're a better man than me. My wife's ex living at my place? That'd be something." He meant it like half a joke, half a test. I smiled like it didn't land. We had the space. He studied me for a second, decided I was either secure or stupid, and walked off. At work, it wasn't much different. A couple of the guys had heard pieces through their wives. Construction talk always wanders off-site. We were leaning against a truck one afternoon, coffee in hand, when one of my foremen smirked. "So, you really got your wife's ex crashing at your place?" "Guest room," I said. "Temporary." He whistled low. "Wouldn't fly at my house." I just shrugged. Everybody's different. What I didn't add was, everybody's also watching. The consultation with Andrew Collins happened downtown on a Tuesday. Not in his office, not yet. We picked a cafe near the courthouse, neutral ground, noisy enough to blend in. He walked in wearing a suit that had seen a lot of long days and bad decisions. I already had a slim folder on the table, nothing flashy. Bank snapshots. A couple of those notebook pages were copied. Notes about Tyler's stay. Andrew flipped through it, sipping his coffee. "Okay," he said. "You're early." "Story of my life," I said. He nodded. "Here's what matters if this turns into a fight. Dates, consistency, witnesses, patterns. Judges don't care that you felt disrespected. They care that you can prove instability around your kid, financial recklessness, that kind of thing. So not just, 'I didn't like the guy in my house,'" I said. "Exactly." He closed the folder, tapped it once. "You don't have to confront this yet. Just don't be blind." There was something freeing about hearing that from someone whose job is to clean up after bad marriages. "The question is," he added, "are you trying to save this, or to land it?" "I'm trying to make sure my daughter has a stable runway," I said. "Everything else is negotiable." He liked that answer. We set up a formal office meeting for later. I walked out of the cafe with that folder under my arm, feeling less like a husband with a problem and more like a project manager with a plan. Back home, Lauren was still running with her favorite story. At a neighborhood get-together, I could hear her laughing with a couple from 3 houses down. "Ryan's not the jealous type," she said, loud enough for the whole deck. "He's secure. He knows Tyler and I are just friends." The other woman made a face. "I don't think mine would be that chill." Lauren smiled like she'd won something. My mother pulled me aside near the grill a little later. "Honey, the whole town is talking," she said quietly. "You know that, right?" "Yeah," I said. "I know. You don't deserve this circus," she added. "Whatever you decide, I'll back you." "I already decided," I told her. "Paperwork just hasn't caught up yet." The real turning point was one evening in our own driveway. Andrew stopped by after work. We stood by his car with the trunk open, going over a thicker, color-tabbed folder, finances, assets, draft custody plan. Kids rode bikes up and down the street. Sprinklers hissed somewhere nearby. Regular summer noise. He pointed to a blue tab. "House title stays with whoever keeps primary physical custody of your daughter. That's cleaner. Judges like cleanliness." I nodded, tracking every line. And the timeline? We'll firm it up at the office, he said. For now, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Gathering, not reacting. As we closed the folder and I tucked it under my arm, I felt someone watching. Lauren was standing at the front door, screen half open. She saw me, saw Andrew, saw the folder. Our eyes met for half a second. She didn't ask what was inside. I didn't offer. She let the screen door close and disappeared back into the house where her ex was sitting on my couch. That's when it clicked fully into place for me. We were already living in two versions of this marriage. In hers, she was the enlightened wife with the secure husband who let her ex stay over. In mine, I was already months down the road, headed for signatures, not screaming. And only one of us had started carrying folders. Patricia called it a family barbecue, like we were in a commercial. I knew what it really was the second Lauren mentioned it. She just wants everyone together, Lauren said, rinsing dishes. Things have been tense. It'll be good for us. Translation. She wanted to take the temperature of the humiliation. Saturday afternoon, I lit the grill in my own backyard and watched cars line the curb. Lauren's mom, her sister, cousins, a couple of strays they called family when they needed an audience. Kids ran in the yard. Someone set a speaker on the patio and put on a playlist from 5 summers ago, back when things still felt solid. Smoke from the charcoal cut through the June air. I stacked patties, laid out chicken, did the host thing. If you walked in blind, you'd think it was just another weekend. Tyler showed up late, of course. Walked through the side gate with that same grateful smile and a grocery bag of cheap beer like it was a ticket. "Hey everyone," he called, lifting the bag. "I come bearing offerings." Half the conversations died mid-sentence. People looked from him to me like they were watching a dare. I just flipped a burger. "Hey Tyler, cooler's over there." Patricia hugged him like he'd survived a war. "You poor thing," she said, loud enough. "You've been through so much." I watched Lauren watch them, trying to control the narrative with her eyes. "He's a friend, my husband's fine, we're all mature here." The first shot came about an hour in. We were all scattered. Kids at the little fold-out table, adults around the patio set. Beer bottles, paper plates, the usual. One of Lauren's cousins, Jeff, took a long drink, looked at me, then at Tyler. "So, Ryan," he said, voice just a little too loud, "how's it feel letting another man crash at your place? You must be the most patient dude on earth." There was laughter, but it wasn't friendly. It had teeth. I felt every eye on me, waiting for a crack. A joke? A blow-up? Something. I flipped a burger, calm. "Feels like extra groceries and higher water bills," I said. Not my favorite line item, but it won't bankrupt me. More laughter, different flavor. Tyler shifted in his chair. Lauren forced a laugh. "He's secure," she said quickly. "He's not threatened. Some men just evolved like that." Her mom chimed in. "Exactly. Some wives actually have husbands they can trust." That one hung in the air. I checked the meat and moved some chicken away from the hot spot. "Anybody want more lemonade?" I asked. "Or are we all staying on beer until the bad decisions really pile up?" A few people smirked. A few looked away. The topic shifted, but the damage was already logged. Over by the fence, my mother found me while I was refilling the platter. "You done?" she asked quietly, eyes steady. "With the food," I said. "With this," she said. "With all of this." I didn't dodge it. "Yeah," I said. "I'm done." She nodded like she'd been waiting to hear it. "Then you tell me what you need, and I'll help. Money, Chloe, whatever. You're not going to get dragged under with this." "Already working on it," I said. "Paperwork's in motion." She let out a breath. "Good, because this isn't strength, what they're calling it. It's disrespectful with nice plates." Later, on the drive home after dropping my mother off, Lauren kept her eyes on the road, jaw tight. "I can't believe your mom," she said. "The way she looked at Tyler, the way she judged me. She's out of line." "She's protective," I said. "She's rude," Lauren snapped. "And you just let her be. You didn't defend me once." "You seemed busy defending Tyler," I said. She slammed her hand on the steering wheel. Because everyone is acting like this is some scandal. You could shut it down if you wanted. You could say you're fine, but you're just quiet. You haven't made it a big deal, so it shouldn't be a big deal. I looked out the window at our neighborhood sliding by. Yeah, I said. You're right about one thing. I haven't made it a big deal. When we pulled into the driveway, the porch light hit the front of the house I paid for, the guest room window where Tyler was probably scrolling through his phone, waiting to hear how the day went. As I killed the engine, I finally put it into words, for myself, not for her. I'd stopped trying to save the marriage sometime between the first joke about my patience and my mother saying she'd help with whatever I decided. Now I wasn't a man in a rough patch. I was a man working a job with a closing date. Tempo picked up after the barbecue. Once you admit something's over, it's amazing how fast you can move. Most nights, it was the same scene. Chloe and I at the dining table, both with our heads down. She had spelling words and math problems. I had bank statements and legal forms. She leaned against my arm sometimes without looking up, humming while she worked, and all I could think was that I was quietly planning where she'd sleep 6 months from now. "Dad, how do you spell remember?" she asked, brow furrowed. I underlined a transaction, circled a date. "REMEMBER, I said. "Double MEM. She wrote it down. I highlighted another line, Venmo transfer from Lauren to Tyler. Not huge money. Enough to matter. During the day, I ran my jobs. Early mornings, lunch breaks, and late afternoons, I ran mine. I went to the bank and asked for printed statements, years worth. Checking, savings, joint credit cards. The teller looked at me like I was overdoing it. "Organizing for taxes," I said. "No one questions taxes." At the county office, I pulled property records, deed copies, tax assessments, the boring stuff most people never think about until they're splitting it. "Are you doing a refi?" the clerk asked. "Something like that," I said. Andrew's office was different from the cafe. Diplomas on the wall, shelves of code books, the soft hum of a printer that had probably seen more divorces than a therapist. He spread everything out on his desk. "Okay," he said. "Custody first. That's your priority." "Stability for Chloe," I said. "School, house, routine. She didn't ask for any of this." "The judge will like that," he said. "We'll push for primary physical with you. Generous visitation with mom if she cooperates and keeps things stable." "And if she doesn't?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "Then we use what you've been collecting. Guests staying long-term, questionable decisions, money moving in weird ways. Judges don't like chaos around kids." At home, the signs were all there if she wanted to see them. She saw me leaving early with a tabbed folder tucked under my arm. She heard my voice low behind my office door. She watched my mother drop off an envelope, saw me lock it away without opening it in the kitchen like normal mail. To Jenna, she had it all figured out. I heard her on speaker once while I passed the bedroom. "He's just organizing for taxes," she said. "You know how he gets quiet, passive-aggressive. He'll calm down." I sat at my desk that night and signed the last of the initial filings. My hand didn't shake. Name, date, signature. Authorizing Andrew to move forward. Authorizing a process server to walk up to my front door and hand my wife an envelope with our marriage autopsied inside. I sat there for a minute afterward, pen still in my hand. Part of me had hoped she'd wake up before it got this far. Ask the right questions. See past her own story. Another part of me, if I'm honest, had been counting down to this moment from the second Tyler rolled his suitcase over my hardwood and into the guest room I built for my family. Brick by brick, conversation by conversation we never had. The case was done. Now it was just about delivery. The text from Andrew came mid-morning while I was walking to a site with my foreman. "All done. She's been served." I stared at the screen for a second. Felt that familiar calm roll in, the same feeling I get right before a concrete pour. Forms are built, steel is tied, inspections are signed off. At that point, you're past second thoughts. You just see how it sets. "Everything good?" my foreman asked. "Yeah," I said, pocketing the phone. "Right on schedule." I finished the walkthrough, answered questions, pointed at problems that actually could be fixed. Then I drove home knowing there was an open envelope somewhere in my house with my name at the top of every page. When I stepped through the front door, the air felt different, quiet but sharp. Lauren was in the living room. The documents were spread across the coffee table like a crime scene. She looked up at me with a face I hadn't seen before. Shock, fury, and something like disbelief that I'd actually followed through. "What is this, Ryan?" she demanded, voice already cracking. "What the hell is this?" I set my keys down on the entry table. "Looks like divorce papers," I said. "Petition, custody plan, financial disclosures. Standard package." "Don't do that," she snapped. "Don't act like this is normal. You blindsided me. You didn't even talk to me." I glanced at the stack of pages, all those conversations we never had now typed and numbered. "Everything you need to know is written there," I said. "It's all laid out." She wanted a scene. Yelling, tears, some big cinematic moment she could point to as the day everything broke. "You couldn't even have the decency to tell me first?" she said. To my face. "I've been telling you for months," I said calmly. "You just liked your version better." Later that night, I handed her a second envelope. This one had copies of bank records, account transfers, asset lists. Clean, logged, legal. She flipped through them with shaking hands. "You're being cruel," she whispered. "Cold. Who are you right now?" I met her eyes. "Same guy I've always been," I said. "I just stopped treating my personal life like it didn't need the same planning as my work." She wanted emotion. I gave her structure. The envelope said the rest. The court date landed on a cold Tuesday that felt like it belonged in someone else's year. I treated it like a job meeting. Pressed shirt, clean shave, black folder under my arm. Andrew walked beside me up the courthouse steps, running through the last details. My mother came too. No comments, just a hand on my shoulder before we went through security. Chloe was at the neighbor's house, eating cereal and watching cartoons. Whatever else happened, she didn't need to watch her parents argue over Wednesdays and pickup times. Inside the courtroom, everything was beige and tired. The judge sat high, calm in that way people get when they've seen this 1,000 times. We took our places. Me at one table with Andrew, Lauren at the other with an attorney she hired late, flipping through papers like she'd only just realized they were real. The judge started reading through filings I already knew by heart. The petition, our marriage date, Chloe's age, the custody proposal, assets, debts, the bones of 12 years stripped down to bullet points. Andrew slid exhibits forward as needed. Bank statements with highlighted transfers. Neighbor statements about Tyler's car living in our driveway. Screenshots where Lauren told friends I was too quiet, while Tyler made himself at home. Notes about just a few days turning into months. Lauren kept searching the paperwork like she was trying to find a trapdoor. There wasn't one. I hadn't left any gaps. When the judge asked if I had anything to add, I stood up, the folder still closed. "I want stability for my daughter," I said. "A clear schedule, a safe home, and a clean end to this situation. No speeches, no character assassinations, just the blueprint." The judge took a breath, shuffled pages, and started making it official. House awarded to me. Primary school week custody mine. Support numbers, visitation schedule. When the gavel finally hit, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a tired kind of relief. The structure I built for my kid was going to stay standing, even if the marriage didn't. The house feels bigger now. Same square footage, same walls I patched and painted, but the sound's different. No extra car in the driveway. No extra voice in the kitchen. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the quiet that shows up after lawyers stop sending emails. Lauren's gone. Court order where the ring used to be. She packed her things over 2 short visits with her sister. Clothes, pictures, some furniture she insisted on. I let her take more than I had to. Not because I'm noble, because I wanted her gone clean. Chloe's room is down the hall, still full of her books and stuffed animals. On certain nights, she's here, school nights mostly. I help with homework at the same dining table where I once highlighted bank statements. Now it's spelling lists and science projects. Different kinds of future planning. On the off nights, when she's at Lauren's apartment, the house gets very still. I thought that silence would tear me up. Sometimes it does. There were nights early on when I sat in my office, door locked out of habit, hands shaking after signing one more form, one more check, one more document making it final. Grief's real. So is guilt. My kid has 2 addresses because 2 adults couldn't keep one promise. That's on us, not her. But here's the part nobody advertises. There's a peace in knowing you didn't beg someone to stay who already left in every way that mattered. I watched Lauren walk out of the courthouse that last day. Papers in a folder, hair pinned up, jaw set. She didn't look back. For a second, my body waited for the old reflex. Turn around, say something, fix it. Nothing came. I realized I'd stopped needing her to turn around months before. Probably the night I installed that lock on my cabinet. So what do I tell other men, the ones listening to this and feeling that same tightness in their chest? Silence can be cowardice. If you shut down just to avoid conflict, you're not strong. You're hiding. But silence can also be a tool if you use it right. If you use it to gather facts, protect your kids, move your money smartly, and make decisions with a clear head instead of a busted ego. You don't have to scream to draw a line. You don't have to throw a fit to walk away with your pride and your kid's bed still in the same house. I step out onto the porch a lot now. Look at the place I refused to abandon. It's not perfect. Neither am I. But it's mine and it's stable and my daughter knows this is home. So here's my question for you. If you're a man hearing this and you've got a Tyler hovering around your life, where is your line? Because if you don't know it before someone moves an ex into your guest room and calls it kindness, you'll find out the hard way who's been writing the story for you. I chose to become the historian of my own life. Next time something cracks, I won't wait so long to decide whether I'm fixing it or documenting it for the teardown.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.